The Notre Dame defense and special teams scored 3 touchdowns before Jeremiah Love could take the field, but he managed to even them up, scoring 3 touchdowns of his own in a 70-7 blowout of Syracuse. Drew Mentock, as always, this episode of Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana. There's still more 4 touchdowns we're going to have to go over, but there's 6 of the touchdowns right there. Defense, special teams, and Jeremiah Love and a Heisman post.
Yes, just the first quarter of the game got out of hand pretty quickly. Jeremiah Love's first touch didn't come until over 8 minutes into the game, and then he took it 45 yards to a touchdown. Game was pretty much out of hand at that point, but Notre Dame ended up scoring 35 in that first quarter, which is the most they've scored in the history, according to Notre Dame. So just kind of got out of hand from there, and Notre Dame just kept its foot on the gas until even once they started pulling the starters early in the third quarter, they weren't really letting up.
For the record, Jadarian Price scored, Aeneas Williams and Kenny Minchie late, and C.J. Carr threw a touchdown pass. I believe he only threw 6 passes on the day. Touchdown pass on third down to Will Pauling. Notre Dame actually scored 4 touchdowns on third down in this game. That's lost because they could have scored touchdowns on every down in this game. Syracuse was badly overmatched. Defensively, at a quick glance, I had the Irish for at least 28 stuffs or sacks against Syracuse. Now, Syracuse was able to execute about 78 plays to Notre Dame's 39, which has got to be an all-time low in a victory for the Fighting Irish. But Drew, the defense, and Marcus Freeman talked about it post-game, the defense has just continued to play better, and there was one moment in this stadium more than 2 months ago where they knew they had to turn it around.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he talked about how there were people asking, are you going to take over for Chris Ash after, 2.5 games into the season, where they were really giving up a lot against Purdue as well. And you saw how they've really turned it around. You even saw Nick Saban on College Game Day talking about just how strong the Notre Dame defense has gotten since that early start, and we really saw that today. I think until that last Syracuse drive, the Orange only had, I think, 130 yards of offense. They're averaging 1.9 yards per play. So they got over 200 late in the game, but that was when Notre Dame's had just emptied its bench.
Way backups were
they
in.
still, were fighting for every yard, too. So Notre Dame, just a dominant effort against a team that I mentioned before the game in instant analysis that Fran Brown wasn't going to let his team quit. I don't feel like they fully did. They were still going for it on fourth down and being aggressive. They just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and they for the record, they did not call timeout to score the touchdown on their last play of the drive. It was a legitimate touchdown score to make it 70-7. But we have not mentioned yet the one guy that, if you can turn the tide in a game when it's 70-7, Jalen Stroman set the tone. Interception touchdown on Syracuse's first possession, block punt that resulted in a Luke Talich touchdown on the second possession, and a great first half all along. We looked at each other about 4 or 5 different times and just said, is that Jalen Stroman again? And as Phil Houck asked him post-game, I think this is the first time we've talked to Stroman since the season began, how did it feel to have a season in that first half?
Yes, and we kind of the assumption was Luke Talich would get the start. That obviously didn't happen, and that coaching staff clearly knew what they were doing with that. So he played like a man possessed. You felt like all that emotion of the whole season where he kind of lost his starting job after the start to the season kind of just came out, and he played the best football probably of his life in that first half.
Leonard Moore added an interception touchdown. Ethan Long added an interception touchdown that was called back due to a Donovan Heinisch roughing the passer penalty. Long then intercepted a pass as well. Safeties could do no wrong today, considering Luke Talich scored the other touchdown. And that's really been the case. It's been that secondary getting through rough times early on, getting through the Dallas Gold and Mark Zachary days. Our colleague Pete Sampson, who's waiting for us, likes to mention that Devonta Smith has been a heck of an influence at nickel when he's been back healthy.
Yes.
He's been healthy for a month. Notre Dame's defense, this isn't the only string that's being pulled, but Notre Dame's defense has played its best football over the last month. The opponents have something to do with it. But Smith has really stabilized it in the back end. That secondary, I think now you would never have said this at any point in September, even early October, maybe even during the USC game. The secondary can go up against anybody and give the Notre Dame a chance to win in a playoff game.
Yes, and Devonta Smith also almost had an interception. He dove near the sideline.
Right. Yep.
Was very frustrated with himself that he didn't get it. Just kind of show you how competitive that secondary has gotten. Notre Dame's now up to 20 interceptions on the season. Coming into today, that would have tied for the lead nationally, I believe. So that just goes to show you most of the linebackers have gotten their hands on a few, but for the most part, to your point, it's been the secondary disrupting things, and the pass rush is also doing a much better job at this point in the season, too.
Jeremiah Love struck a Heisman pose. Marcus Freeman was asked if that was allowed. He said, yes, I think he has earned that pose, made a deadpan joke about he doesn't like all of Jeremiah Love's celebrations in the end zone or post-game. I thought that was a good comment by the coach. But Love has made it so you can vote for a running back for the Heisman because Jeremiah Love is the best player in the country. There's quarterbacks that are deserving as well. but this has been a 2-year run of watching one of the best players in Notre Dame football history.
Yes, and I mean, only 3 running backs have won the award this century. So yeah, to your point, it's not something people usually win at that position, and usually it's guys like Derrick Henry, who I know he was also asked about in the press conference, who are getting a ton of carries. Love doesn't do that. He had 8 carries, as we mentioned tonight, still at 171 yards. So just incredibly efficient. He doesn't have to be a workhorse to score and do all those different things. And 20 touchdowns in the season now. That ties a Notre Dame record set by Jerome Bettis in
1991, actually. 91, yep.
So doing some pretty historic things. I know you have a little bit more on that. But, yeah, just a huge performance, and they still have 1 game left this regular season.
I was going to mention Jerome Bettis added 3 touchdowns that don't count against Florida in the Sugar Bowl. We said maybe those should count. It was a pretty good game. But Jeremiah Love may add 3 touchdowns next week against Stanford because that's the type of football he's playing now. Until then, for Drew Mentock of Irish Illustrated, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana.